Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I'll be going over my 5th round game from the 2023 US Go Congress from Kent, Ohio. If you haven't seen my previous 4 reviews from my US Open games, first go check them out, and 2, as an update, I'm currently 2-2 in the bracket, and so I'm playing a fellow 6-dan who is also 2-2, just to set the stage and give some backstory on this game. I've never played Derek before, nor have I ever met him, but I had a very enjoyable game with him. So let's get into it, and kind of like my, I think it was 2nd round game, was it? Yes, 3rd round game. My opponent starts, because I'm black, my opponent's white. My opponent starts with some kind of out-of-style moves. Right, in my 3rd round game, my opponent started with duel 6-4. In this game, my opponent started with duel 3-5. So, I believe I talked about this in that video, but just to reiterate very quickly, the reason why I personally don't prefer these moves is because there's not a good way to change what Shimari you're going to get. So again, this is actually the perfect example here. When you have the lower right here as black, what are the different ways you can make Shimaris? You could make this one. This is very standard. You can make this one 1 space high. You could make 2 space high, or you can make large knights. Yeah, so you have a lot of options. Some cases even, you can play this one if you have something on the bottom, believe it or not. So you have a lot of flexibility with what you're playing. But if we look at white, the real only Shimari white can make is this one. Now, obviously, playing this one wouldn't be good. I've seen this before. It's obviously not standard, and anything else isn't really securing the corner. So there's no real good way to change what Shimari you're going to get. So the real only Shimari you can get is this one. So it's a lot less flexible compared to the 3-4, where you can kind of pick at this point which one you get. Now in the game, there is a reason that maybe white chose this. Obviously, a big reason could be style. Some people just like 3-5s, which is fine. But in this game specifically, so like in the game I played here, and white, as I was saying, plays was that a 3-4? Yep, 3-4. And it makes sense because 1, it's the real only way to enclose the corner, and 2, it's a big move. But let's say white had played here. Now, yes, I could have played the same move and white have gone here, and it would have been the same thing. But when white plays here, a very nice looking move for black is to approach. So that could be a reason why white is deciding to play the 5-3. Is to prevent me from approaching, and therefore white wouldn't have a chance to make a Shimari. But this one, I could still break it, right? I could still play this move, but it is less severe compared to this one for white, because anytime you can approach while extending, so because there's a black stone at Q16, it's generally considered good to do this. So yeah, so in this case there might be like a strategic reason for white to do it. Goes there and then play here, and I didn't want to do anything with the 3-5, not because I don't think I'm not comfortable with it, but when people play the 3-5 or the 6-4, generally, they have a game plan for when their opponent's going to jump in, right? That's why they're playing. It's almost like their specialty, right? So I could have played 3-3. I could have played D3. Even in the past, E4 was an option. But in this game, I stuck with what I know, so I shoulder hit. White, if you want that corner, you can have that corner, but I'm going to get forcing moves on the outside. So white's going to answer, and white does, But every move white makes, white's only getting just ever so bigger. Just ever so slightly bigger. Whereas my stones will have a bigger influence elsewhere. And I think I could have just jumped, but I also know that attaching is possible. So I attach. And I think jumping is okay here because, especially with 017, this is kind of a good direction for black to play in. But I went here. And generally when your opponent does this kind of attachment, you don't want to give them too many forcing moves. So I think white should just stand up. Even if I can Hane, my shape here is still pretty weak. Whether I extend 3 or just 2, white can get some sort of counter approach, pincering this group, and I gotta add some stone to help this group. Now, again, this is where the 3-5 kind of backfires, is how do you now use this stone in conjunction with C9? It's difficult. It's difficult. So, I think white should just stand up. Because, again, any move you play here, your corners only get ever so bigger. And so white not only Hanes, but also descends, which again, it's good on points, but I get an extra forcing move. Now, white could consider ignoring this, but white answers. And you can see, if you compare the amount of points white has in the upper left compared to here, it's not that much bigger. I think, colloquially, this is considered 12 points corner. Like, how much more does white have? Maybe, like, because this stone isn't captured yet, so we can't even count that. Maybe 3 more points, 4-ish, 5 max. Whereas my stones have a lot more value in them compared to white's last few moves. Now again, white's corner is secure, so it's not just about thinking about points, but that's how I was viewing it. I was like, okay, if you're going to have that corner anyways, I want you to have it on a small scale. So I can extend. And this shape, if you compare it to this kind of shape, is a lot. This shape is very flimsy, very weak, but this shape is pretty solid and strong. So I was very happy with this result. And then white finished off the lower left. But again, white could only finish it off with the knight's move, Shamari. So I just play on the right side. White extends. And so here, white has been, like, you can tell a lot from an opening. Especially as you get stronger, you can learn a lot from your opponent's opening. So one, my opponent did double 3-5, which if you study with AI or watch AI, you'll know they don't really play that. Two, my opponent gave me a lot of forcing moves in the upper left. So I was like, okay, that's a little strange to do. I'm very thankful for you for doing that. And then they play this side extension, which, can you say it's good or bad? It's hard to say at a human level, but we know AIs don't like these kind of side extensions, although I know I just played one. But that was to build a Moyo. It's slightly different. But I was like, I bet I'm going to win this game. Now, you might think, why are you thinking that at move, 18? But just based on white's move so far, I'm very confident in this game. Because it tells me a few things. It tells me, one, whether my opponent chooses not to study with AI as just a choice, or it doesn't. It just means they're maybe a little less familiar with some AI stuff. And so I feel like I have an advantage that I could use because of that. So I play here. Again, now this is pretty solid on the left side. White extends. Again, if I was playing somebody who maybe would keep up with AIs, I would expect some attachment like this, because if you compare the point value of this extension to black getting this corner, black's getting a lot more. Black's getting a whole lot more. So I was expecting this kind of thing. Right? White's already not fully connected, but white has some friends nearby here, so this K3 stone is pretty safe for the meantime. So I was expecting this kind of move. Maybe white can isolate this stone, and then if white gets a stone in the upper right, this stone could get isolated. But white goes here, is like, okay, thank you. And then white goes here, and I was like, okay, maybe they do know some AI stuff. And at 6 Dawn, you kind of have to, so it was, may have been a little bit of hubris on my part. Yeah, maybe a bit of hubris. But this is not normally seen when black already has a stone at R9. And so I didn't want to do something like this. White jumping, white shape is perfect, right? Large knight's connection here. This would be too good for white. Yeah, again, this is normal. And if we play kind of a normal sequence, like this, then like this, and then turn, this stone's actually in a very nice spot. But once again, white stones here are also in a nice spot. So I wanted to find a way to maximize my attack that I could get on white. So like, because this feels too good for white. So in the game, well, let's look at a variation without the stone nearby. So again, because this is a normal move to play when there's no stones nearby. So we just looked at if I descend, white jumps, if I hane. This is another option. And white will, of course, double hane. And I have seen this. This is probably less common. But this kind of thing is also possible. Push, 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 push. But in this case, this direction for me, probably not so good, right? White is very solid here. And so this wall is not that useful. Good block. I've seen cut as well, like this. Atari. Play here. Atari down. Like this. And like so. And this is okay. This is pretty good, or this is probably even for both sides as well. Like, I don't think either side can complain about this. Something like that is playable. Obviously Atari here, playable. Now this one, after your Atari, it's not as good because after this stone gets captured. So black's giving up a stone, so it's probably not so good for black. But keep that. There are other variations. Connect here, push, play like this, jump to here, and then when white touches, you stand up and white cuts. I remember seeing this for the first time in a Shinjin-seo versus Koje game, I believe. It was Koje versus, I think, Shinjin-seo. But this is also possible. So there's a lot of variations here. And so I was trying to find one that worked nicely when I already have a stone at R9. And so when white went here, yeah, I think I could have Atari'd and done this one. This is also possible, I think. Again, if white does this stone here is in like the perfect spot to really annoy white. But instead, so I think that is playable. In the game, I did Atari, and if white had connected, I could block. And this is, again, like that variation we were just looking at, but now white can't capture the stone at Q7. And so you have to ask yourself, is that stone are these stones here important? Yes. Even though white pushes through here, look at the strength black gets on the right side here. This stone poking out, like this stone at P5 for white is useless. This stone at O6 is super valuable. If I can get this move in Sente, which I think I can, like the bottom side can just be attacked severely because of how strong black is in the lower left. So lower right, I mean. So that's why in the game, white Atari'd. Okay. I take, and it's playable for white if white does this. And even plays this ko shape. You don't want to do something like this and allow black to get the hane. So you want to Atari, even if it leaves a ko here. Yeah, I don't think black would play the ko immediately. Black could just leave it for now. But this is better than the game. Because in the game, white connects. And white can't cut here. Cut, Atari, and push. White is dead here. There's no way for white to get enough liberties to... It's not even a matter of liberties, actually. It's just black can make two eyes. So white has to turn here. And so white lives in the corner, but I get Sente, and I seal white in, and I get thickness anyways. So I was very happy with this result here. And now I'm even more confident that I can win this game. Because I felt white deciding to do this variation was... I felt that it was not good at all. So the fact white chose it, I was like, this is a strange choice. So I jump out here. I have a hard time playing moves to secure territory when it looks like I could make a moyo. And so what I mean by that is I could probably just play this move, or even if I want to be a little more efficient, something like this. I'm really bad at playing moves that I feel like could be on the inside of my potential moyo. And I didn't want to play moves like this because I didn't want to see white moves like this. All right, it's kind of an area where white's potential is meeting black's potential. So I really like to make my moyos as big as possible. So that's why I went here. But it's probably reasonable to just play a move like I was showing. But then white plays the strangest move I've seen of the tournament. And I played some bad moves. My opponents played some bad moves. But I could at least kind of understand the ideas for them. But this move, I don't know. White went here. And I didn't know what to think about this move. I wasn't really sure what it was doing. Like, it's already strengthening a corner that we've already concluded is as solid as can be. It's not really preventing me from coming in if I want. Like, I could still shoulder hit like this. It's not really helping invade the left side. Like, white could have just... If white wanted to play on the left side, white could just do that immediately. So I just didn't know what this was. It felt like a pass almost. So I treated it like a pass. So now I'm like building my moyo as big as possible. And just to note, if white wanted to protect the bottom, white should just play a move like this. Should just play a move like this. This move has a lot more value than this move. So black goes there, and then play here. Play here. Yeah, here. So I always have a... Like, early on when you're playing Josekis, it's not super important which ones you pick. As long as you're on a Joseki path, it's okay to pick one that's maybe a little less efficient or less good early on, like first 20 moves. But now that the board's developing, it actually does matter more which Josekis you pick. So I always have a hard time, maybe late opening, early mid-game, of picking the right Joseki. I always have a hard time with that. And so in the game I went here. I played the Iron Pillar, but think I should just bump. And if white goes into the corner, I should allow white to do that. Because again, what am I trying to do here? Build a giant center. So I should stick with my plan. White will cut. And here I actually have I'll say simple variation I could play, or a fun variation I could play. So the simple one is just extend. White will attach. Play here. And if white pulls back, I'll just play this one. This looks a little weird, but I have to fix this somehow, and if I do this one, white can Atari later anyway, so this is preventing white from doing that Atari. And so does white need another move? This is, let's see, does white need another move? The only move that would work is this one. And so, kind of, if white goes here, yeah, white's okay here. Or is it ko? It's something. I don't think white would add an extra move at this point. If it's a ko, white will accept ko. White could also do this one, where if I play here, now white can fix by just going here, or maybe playing this one. Something like that. But this is a simple one. I get the outside, white gets the corner, we move on. The fun way to play is when white cuts, because when I extend like this, white says, okay, I can give up that stone now. What if we force white to add a stone? Okay, white will answer. Fix. So white's going to try the same move, but now I hane on the inside. And now we say, okay, white, you're free to move into the center. But I will need to remind you, you have no eyes. So have fun. So this is more of the chaotic way of playing. But it has potential because white doesn't even have one eye. And again, I have all these center stones and thickness that it has potential, believe it or not. But this kind of way of playing, you actually need pretty good instincts, because how can you read out every variation here? Like, how could you even predict white's next move? You just have to have a feeling that, oh, whatever white does is good for me. Whereas when you play a simple variation like this one, it's a lot easier to follow the branches and therefore make a sound conclusion on whether the result's good or not. So I should do that one. I played this one. And when white clamps, yeah, I got a little greedy and descended. And so you might think, well, you're cutting off that stone. And it's true, I am. But I'm giving white a lot more forcing moves when white tries to live. So in the game I capped, which again I think is okay, but when white goes here, white is basically already alive. Because even if I play this kind of move, because white has this move in Sente now because of the corner, white's alive. So because I give white this T16 Sente, white is a lot stronger. Now let's say white was able to live even without that move. Let's say something like this. Well, now the Aji isn't the cut, but it's actually looking at this peep at Q18. So moves around here start to be a problem when white can play like this. This is threatening to cut at R17, but also maybe connect under or do whatever white wants. So that's why I should, especially if I'm trying to attack. If I didn't care about attacking, I think descend is okay. But when I'm caring about attacking, even if I lose a few points locally, like white's not going to play here now. White would extend, and now white doesn't get that free kind of eye-making move at T16. So when you're trying to kill, or sorry, not even kill, got ahead of myself there. When you're trying to attack, don't descend, basically. White goes there. And then white went here. Yeah, white really needed to play this move. Right, really needed to play this move. Yes, white could have done this one. It's a little narrow, but now if I play this kind of move, white could just run out. Yeah, do something like this. When you play this one, you're a little further, so you kind of need an extra stone here, but white didn't add that. And again, I'm so solid in the lower right. Even this kind of move is starting to look Sente-ish, or this kind of move. So I'm not worried about any move white here, so I play at the shape point. White blocks, and there's no other way for white to refute this. Yeah, there's no other way for white to refute this. Even if you think white can like push out like this because of the cuts in the corner, right? Well, at this point, white has given up more on the side. So now, even though white kept the corner, black took these 3 stones, and yeah, black's center. I don't even know where I would play next. Tengen, right? Just look how big that center is looking. So, yeah, I don't think white could have done that, although it would have been better than what happened in the game. Because I can even push here once if white connects. Bump, and there's no way for white to capture me. If something like this happened, cut, Atari, like this. White's got too many problems. White's got too many problems. I got 4 liberties, white has 2 or 3, so... yeah, and it's important to get this move if I can get it, because if I block, white can block here in Sente. And so it's not even for white's sake making eyes, but point-wise, I have to spend a move on the inside. But notice in the game, because I was able to push once, I might not have to fill in a point there. So white went here, and this feels kind of crazy, but like what else could white have done? If we're being honest, right? Like you do this one, black with this Hane. So, and here I think I played wrong direction, although no, I guess it's okay. I guess it's okay. I think I should bump though. I should just bump. After bumping, now there's no way for white to run out. It does mean white gets some forcing moves, but even this move, do I have to answer? Yeah, I don't have to answer even. So I think I should bump first. Make sure I know white cares about this stone, basically. In the game, when I just jump, white just says, okay, you can have that stone. There. Push again. So I made an error here in the recording. I forgot to exchange this move. So that's why white was able to push here. Yeah. That's why white was able to push here. Although even when white pushes here, I think I can just cut. Oh, no, there's a net. Sorry, yeah, there's a net. No ladder, but there is a net here. So that's why, even though it looks like I didn't have to, I had to extend because white had exchanged N12. And I fix that later once white starts to use that stone again. But this is the kind of game I am very confident with. I have a weak group, and it doesn't even have one eye yet. And so how do you attack this group for profit? Again, it would be great to kill it, right? But when you're playing Go, killing it, it's very hard to kill groups. It's very hard to kill stones. So trying to kill a group is almost, most of the time, impossible. But you try to look for areas that you can gain even 5 or 10 points. If you can gain, let's say, 10 points or 5 to 10 points in 2 different areas, that's 10 to 20 points that you've gained by attacking. So for example, we'll see I play here. Okay, white was always going to answer that. That's fine. And connect back. This is important, I would say. How many times will we play moves like this? White will jump, fix. Again, this is very contrived, but just for the sake of argument, like all of a sudden, oh, I'm surrounded in the lower right. Oops. And even though I can play here, and that's Sente. Sorry, white can do this first. That might be helpful. Go here and block, and I'm alive. Well, I'm alive here, but now I have more problems on this side. And remember, this was already on the board. So it's just a bigger headache when you try to kill. Because now white's the one who's 100% alive, and now black's the one who's getting cut up. So how many times has that happened in your games? You think you're on the offensive. A few moves later, once they become alive, you end up being the one under attack. So I just said, okay, I'm not going to have any of that. Let's just connect. And my profit, somewhere I can make profit is up top. So if I force white to go this direction, this is helping me surround the top. So again, this is why in a lot of cases you don't need to kill. You just need to attack for profit. And so this move might look weird, like why wouldn't you just jump, right? But when I'm thinking about liberties on these 3 stones, keep in mind again, this stone has stood up. But even this move is threatening to jump across like this. So this move works perfectly well after this. So that was my idea. That's why I went there. And so white went here. That fixes that. Oops. But now we get into what I was referring to with profit, is I will go here. Now in normal circumstances, white would push, block. Even white can push, and if I cover, block, right? And white can capture these two stones. But if you look at when white has his weak group, sure, I lose a few points on the bottom, but this is helping me attack white. So again, if we go all the way back, before white made this weak group, what if I had played the same moves? Like, let's say, instead of here, I went here. Okay, white would probably stand up. And then probably still poke, connect. And if white does the same thing, like, there's no problems. There's no problems for white. Because white doesn't have a liability of a giant group to take care of. Even in some cases, and probably not, but maybe white, after the lower right result, white might say, oh, I need to make something happen. Let's play this one. White can play differently. But because, let me just ask you, and I exchange this first. Do you think white would ever do this? Force me to connect? No. In this scenario, it looks terrible. But if we look at the game, because white had a weak group, white had to play differently. So when I went here, white didn't push through. White jumped here because white knew white had a weak group that needed to be taken care of. So that's why, one, timing is very important, but two, understanding kind of the flow of an attack is so valuable. If you can understand that flow, anybody can become so much stronger. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. You're not trying to kill this group. You're just trying to get, I'll say minor, but a lot of time, like 5 points, I really don't think is minor, especially at the higher levels when games are decided by a few points. 5 to 10 points a couple times, again, could be between 10 to 20 points. That's big. That's big. Yeah, so white has to crawl now. So I just extend, play here, yes, and then jump. Again, normally, this move is not sente. I'm just fixing my left side. But white has a weak group, so white has to do something about that. So this is like the prime example of what attacking for profit means. Is we're not trying to kill this group. We're just trying to get moves that we normally couldn't get in, I'll say, sente, or just normally couldn't get in general. Again, like, if I played J4 earlier, white's going to play differently. But when white has a weak group, white has to play differently. So, yeah, so push and cut. This is kind of forcing white. Before I answer this move here, I'm just seeing how white's going to play. So that's the whole point of this push and cut. And you should just, again, one of the best ways of getting better, at least in my opinion, is just experimenting. So I'll just give this advice. Just start cutting on second lines. Not even to use it. Just start cutting and leaving it. And just to get into the habit of it. And all you're trying to do is gather data. Like, okay, white, are you going to connect here like you did, or are you going to connect here? That's all. Just to gather data. That's the whole point of this. When, obviously, if white connects this way, there's a cut here. And this cut, this is what I shouldn't say hoping for, but I could play a move like this, threatening to capture here, or continue to cut white off in the center. But when white goes here, now I can wedge here and almost sente. So now my connection's even better. And white probably does want to answer this. So go there, and then I Hana here. So it turns out and then just do this. This felt fine for me. It turns out I can potentially do this. Now, again, the first instinct for white is to cut, but black can just give up like this. And even if white can capture the 1 stone, again, look at this group here. It's so heavy. Atari. Even what? Just connect like this. Yeah, this is painful for whites. Painful for white. Always remember this, though. Especially when you are under attack, you do not need to cut. So white can just extend like this. And maybe I can connect here and keep white separated. But the thing you have to keep in mind with moves like this is, let's say white ends up living, right? Sure, maybe I get some extra forcing moves or extra profit somewhere. But very locally, there's very few points in e6, right? It's almost dame. Maybe I could play f4 now, but you get the idea. e6 is kind of dame. So here, instead, I decide, okay, I'll just force white to take the dame. This is already my profit. White is taking dame here, and look at the potential I'm building on the left side. So we play there. This is when I realized, oh, I need this move for white because white jumped here, and I was like, wait, something doesn't look right. So white did this way earlier. So that's the move that white did earlier. But it still works here, actually, because white can still wedge. So it ends up making sense. But yeah, so white goes here. And I'm like, okay, you can't connect this way. The only way you could connect is here at e15. And if we look at my sector line, I would count maybe k16 to d10 my sector line. Oh, you are way too deep. You're way too deep. And because of how I played this group here, this group of stones has a lot of liberties. So instead of thinking like, oh, cap, maybe this one, maybe something like that, I say give me all of it and play here. Again, maybe it's part of my weakness of always trying to get as much as possible. Because, again, the problem with this move is if white can live, white rips out all the points anyways, and this stone becomes meaningless. But I was confident that I could kill here. And look at this group. Put yourself in black shoes. Do you also not feel confident? I feel pretty confident. So white plays here. Hane back. Always remember, playing moves like this is what white wants. You would be giving white sente moves. You'd be giving white sente moves. So even if you block, cut, Atari, and maybe nothing works directly, but it makes things a lot scarier, right? Like, why have this headache? So basically, don't give your opponent forcing moves. So I just Hane, Atari, and then I can come back and attach here. Hane. Shape point. Okay, I'll fix my shape point. And then white turned. So this was probably white's last chance. White needs to make something happen on the inside. With maybe this kind of move. White needs something. White needs something. And so white's idea here is, okay, well, if black tries to keep everything like this, then again, I'm connecting back to my group, and sure, black kept the left side, but I get to save these. So in the game, what's bigger? So I just Atari here, and when white Hanes, I just play this. Because, again, earlier, if white had done this first, then I would answer. But because white gave me all these points here, I don't need to answer anymore. But yeah, so after this, you can see black has all of this. All of this. And so that is pretty big. It's pretty big. It's a little bit too much for white to be able to handle. So white goes here. This is unnecessary. Black is so weak that white should be a little more efficient with this kind of move. White covers, connect, sente, and then poke here. Again, I can cut here or here. White pushes. Again, this is a weird move. And just to remind, or not even remind, just to tell you, both of us have a lot of time left. Now, partially, I know I always say I was trying to play slower. In this game, when I have a lead or I'm confident in the game, I feel okay with playing faster. When I'm not sure of the result yet, that's when I'll slow down. But for this game, when I have such a control, or again, I felt like I was in control, I'm okay with playing faster. But also that means my opponent was also playing just as quick. Like, I'll tell you how fast we play at the end of the game, but we were the first game done about amongst the group of other 5 and 6 dons that were playing. And yeah, and I mean by a lot. I mean, some people didn't get to like middle game, if that makes sense. Some games didn't even get to there by the time we were finished. So we were both playing fast. So I think if White had played a little bit slower, White would avoid moves like this. Like, okay, you play there, I can just extend back. So how did that move help you, right? It just doesn't work. Now, another thing that doesn't work, or I can't even say that, but I swear White did this in the game. Now, I reviewed this game with my opponent, and they were like, no, there's no way I did that. But I swear White played S3. Obviously, S3 or S2 is much worse compared to here. It's actually kind of funny. This actually doesn't die. Normal cases, it would die. But because this move is Sente to connect back, White can actually still live here. Now, the problem is it allows Black to cut here, but White can still live. But obviously, if you can just live with this move, it's much better. But I swear White did this. But we'll never know. My Kifu says this, but my opponent thinks they did T2. And I think it was one of those things where I was just like, okay, I know connecting Sente, so I know White's going to play some move, so I wasn't even like thinking about White's response. I was just like thinking about the next spot I was going to play. But yeah, that's why White may or may not have went here. Push and cut. So now I have all these points. I have one group as well, so that's pretty impressive as well. White plays here. Go down. Extend. White pushes here. I Atari once, so the idea of this is, okay, White, if you're trying to activate Aji here, you're going to save the stone. But let's say I push first, and then White realizes, oh, there's no Aji there. Let's do something else. But when I Atari here later, White's not going to care about that stone anymore because there's no Aji here. Now, there's no Aji there anyways, but it's still efficient for me to play here. It's still efficient for me to play here because it starts to activate this Knight's move, cut. So White does connect, and I take. And I don't think there was any Aji, but I just took because, again, I knew White needed to fix. And I think at this point, White was like, oh, I need to fix. But White didn't want to just go here, or a slightly better move is go here. But White went here to really try to put pressure. But I'm like, I am so strong that I don't think you can do that. So I Hane here. White Hane's here. Atari, capture, take. So now White's trying to cut this group off, which White can. The problem is, after Atari, wedge, I can go here. Now I've cut White off, and I have two eyes. An eye here and an eye here because this move is Sente to cut here. So, yeah, I have two eyes. White doesn't. And White resigned here. So, pretty chaotic, quick game that I was very confident in after a few moves. So, that doesn't always work out, but I'm glad in this case my confidence didn't bite me in the end. But I felt very confident in this game. I was very happy with a lot of my decisions. And yeah, pretty crazy game. And so going into the tournament, this was my first tournament as 6-dan. It's kind of what I kept telling people, like, yeah, it's my first tournament as 6-dan. And so I set a goal. I set a couple goals. obviously, my number one goal was go 6-0, win the division, and be very pleased with myself. That's kind of the, I wouldn't say unrealistic goal, but if I don't attain that goal, I wouldn't be too upset with myself. Again, with my first tournament at 6 Dan, I can't ask for a whole lot. But so then that was the, I'll say, galactic goal. Something way otherworldly almost. But then my next goal, a little more grounded, was to go 3-3. Or get 3 wins at least, right? That means that, yes, I am 6 Dan. If I can break even, that means, yes, I am 6 Dan. And so with this win here, I am now 3-2. I've gotten 3 wins. And I still have a game to maybe go 4-2. But the worst I could do is 3-3. And that was my very realistic goal. And so I was very happy with myself. So after this game, I was like, let out a sigh of relief. Be like, okay, not done yet. Still got one more game to go tomorrow. But however that game goes, not as much pressure. Just play your best, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, so I was very happy with this game. Also because it was a kind of a stress-free game a little bit. Just because of how quick it was and how dominant I played in this. So it was almost a nice break going into whatever the last day had for me. But yeah, this is my 5th round game. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you have any questions about it, please let me know in the comments. And I'll see everybody in the next episode.